We will kick today off with the budget rec for bids. All right. Starting with FY 2026, I move the SBC recommendation HB 2434 for FY 2026 with a few adjustments. The first adjustment will be $1 million expert witness caseloads and $75,500 for IT security cell phones. And then I will input some language with respect to 2025 SB 125. Bids is exempt from the provisions of Section 149 for the purpose of paying litigation services costs. Can I get a second? Second by Representative Resman. Any discussion? If there's no discussion on FY 26, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. All right, FY 2026 is passed. Moving on to FY 2027 for bids, I move the SBC's recommendation HB 2434 with the following adjustments, adding $1 million for expert witness caseloads and the same proviso language in FY 2027 with respect to 2025 SB 125. Bids is exempt from the provisions of Section 149 for the purpose of paying litigation services costs. Can I get a second? Second by Representative Ellis. Any discussion? Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just based on how the Appropriations Committee is looking at the budgets as they're coming out of the different, specialty area committees and asking the conversations that we have about each of these items. And some of them, the Senate has worked first, so we'll see what their recommendation was to compare it to, and then we'll also see the governor's recommendation, and questions are being asked of other members, what discussions did we have on this committee about each of these items. And so I really want to make sure that we have a good discussion about this particular budget, because I think we all heard some very compelling testimony about how important it is to make sure, first off, that we can pay for the expert witnesses and expert folks to represent people, but also to have pay parity for the attorneys compared to other state organizations and agencies that have similar positions. And so when we look at the difference, the Senate hasn't worked this yet, so we can't really compare what they've done. But when we do look at the difference of what this motion would be for the committee recommendation versus the governor's recommendation, it's reduced by $1 million for the caseloads for experts, and the $800,000 for the fair pay part of it. So when I vote on that in appropriations, if there is no other discussion, I just really want to know how everybody feels about that, because I really think we could include that $800,000 to send a nod to these folks that are working so hard to say that we have made note and made notice that there is this equity issue of pay for our attorneys at that level. So I guess I would make a substitute motion to include also the $800,000 for fair pay parity.
Is there a second on Representative Hoy's motion?
Second.
All right, I'll just kick off the discussion. As much as we would like to fully fund every agency if we could, some of these decisions get harder. This is a year when we know the House is looking to cut $200 million, and so this moves us further away from that. If there's wiggle room in full appropriations towards the end of the budget cycle, I have no problem coming back and looking at this then, but I would suggest keeping this budget slim coming out of the subcommittee. That would be my stance. Any further discussion on Representative Hoy's motion? Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I certainly understand the fact that we're trying to keep budget slim. However, and I can safely say year after year now, I come in this committee and I sit as law enforcement makes requests that are very seldom denied. They've got every vehicle and every avenue by which to arrest and then therefore prosecute. At some point, we're going to come to a situation where there's a problem, and I think we're already at that point. I think that the testimony clearly indicates that we've reached that point where we certainly are incapable of providing adequate defense for those individuals that require defense. And if we continue to exercise the advances in the budgets for that part of our system that is enforcing the law, and yet we're unable to adequately defend those people who may or may not be guilty. If I still understand correctly, our system is innocent until proven guilty. And at this point, I think we have a very inadequate opportunity at someone being able to prove their innocence. I certainly would like to have seen more with respect to the pay parity than what my ranking member had requested. However, I fully support what she's requested, and I would make the request that the rest of this body supports that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a constitutional obligation, and we are paying our bills and supporting our mission currently. Like I said, we'd like to do more, but that's where we're at the moment. Any further discussion? Representative Hoy, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to offer this up, and it really does help then when I'm looking at the big picture of the budget and knowing what the committee's feelings were. It is helpful, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And with that, I would close on the motion to substitute for $1 million for expert witnesses and $800,000 for fair pay equity for fiscal year 2027.
You've heard Representative Hoy's substitute motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Believe the noes have it, and substitute motion has failed. We're back on the original motion. Any further discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, FY 2027 has been approved. That will close the budget recommendation on State Board of Indigent Defense Services, and we will open the budget hearing on Kansas Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Kyle Anderson, and we are going to start talking about the Department of Transportation budget. So to begin with, at the top of your first page, it will be labeled page 801 due to the aggregated numbering. But the top blurbs there provide an overview of what the agency does. It basically oversees the transportation methods for your roadways, airways, waterways, railways throughout the state. And also includes some of the roadways through the Parks Department through some grants to the KDWP. The agency is not SGF funded, as you can see on the pie charts at the bottom there. The budget is almost exclusively through the State Highway Fund, which accounts for roughly 9% of the state budget. And the expenditures table there provides a snapshot of the last 2 years' actuals, which were 2.3 billion, 1.99 billion. The approved request was for 1.69 billion. The revised request is now 2.35 billion, and the out year of fiscal year 27, the request is for 1.67 billion. Turning to page 2, this provides a snapshot of the past 10 years of the budget. I will point out a few items here. The overall maximum in fiscal year 2023 is associated with increases in construction projects. If you turn quickly to page 3, the 10-year history chart is broken down a little bit more, and so you can see that the peak is associated with the capital budget there. That is largely associated with, in 2023, the agency also let a number of T-Works projects, driving that number higher. And the local maxima for fiscal year 2026 is associated with increased letting of projects this year. Again, turning to page 3, the information for the 10-year chart is just broken down into the 4 major categories of capital budget, state aid, other assistance, and state operations. The overall expenditure classifications within the Division of Budget accounting system are broken down further on page 4. I will note that this table, the items are all in thousands, so to actually get the proper appropriation amount, you would need to move the decimal place to the right 3 positions. That trend will carry through the tables going forward. The state aid and capital budget expenditures are broken out on page 5, and the per program expenditures and FTE positions are listed on page 6. On page 7, there is an outlook of the Rail Service Improvement Fund. This is a fund within the agency for improving rail connectivity across the state, and it receives a $10 million transfer from the state highway fund each year to improve short line rail and carry out maintenance therefrom. On page 8, we will begin the fiscal year 26 budget request. The first line item there is the SB 125 appropriation from last year's request. And again, that's a all funds appropriation of $1.69 billion and 2,345 FTE positions. The adjustments for the agency's request for this year begin with item number 2. The first item there is an increase of $8.8 million for buildings. And these are largely associated with the sub-area modernization projects and the vehicle shop updates, but also includes the regular re-roofing and repair and rehabilitation costs. Item number 3 is an expansions program increase of $394.1 million. And these are projects that are designed to increase the connectivity around the state and enhance economic development through the associated connectivity of the state. Item number 4 is an increase of $39.5 million in local construction. These are projects that work to integrate state and local road systems into the state highway system for better access and efficiency capabilities. Item number 5 is an increase of $13.3 million for modernization projects. These are various different repair projects across the state to bring roadways up to the current standards for the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration and related roadway standardization groups. Item number 6 is preservation program expansion of $177.5 million. And preservation projects for the agency are various different maintenance items to extend the life of roadway decks and bridges. Item number 7 is an increase of $19.8 million for architectural and engineering contract services. These are largely contractual architects and engineers for short design phases and inspection phases of construction projects. Item number 8 is an increase of $13 million in innovative technologies aid. These are various projects for increasing the connectivity of roads to law enforcement vehicles or other vehicles traveling on the roads that may have smart connectivities of various forms, and also includes the installation of broadband connections as the highway is being repaired through the pathway that the highway traverses. Item number 9 is an addition to the appropriations bill for a new fund. The US 69 express toll lanes are set to be opening here soon, and the agency's associated fund for collection and distribution of those toll fees is being requested. And the last item, number 10 for fiscal year 26, is a decrease of $3.6 million, including $1.8 million from the state highway fund. And that's due to various rearrangements of salaries and wages monies for vacancies and capital outlay expenditures for various items in the maintenance and design programs. Any questions for fiscal year 26?
Any questions for Kyle on 26? Let's move on to 27.
To provide a little bit of a preface, because of the way that the budget is compared, some of the extent of time that some of the projects within the Department of Transportation take, some of the changes from fiscal year 26 will effectively carry over through the request of fiscal year 27. But there is a secondary effect in the budgeting taking place. The agency is planning to release a $400 million tranche of bonding, and due to the nature of how the bonding then gets attributed to construction projects, the $400 million is effectively backed out of some of those items to not double count the $400 million. And so there will be some associated reduction attributable to that offset. So beginning with item number 1, we have a $9.7 million increase for the expansion programs again. These are things for increased connectivity and economic development, as well as relieving congestion. Item number 2 is again the local construction projects for improving interconnectivity of city and county streets and highways to the state highway system, and that's an increase of $23.6 million. For fiscal year 27, the modernization program is increasing $13.3 million. And again, that's largely for projects to bring intersections and roadways up to the current design standards. Item number 4 is a decrease of $108.6 million for the preservation program. Item number 5 is again the architects and engineers contractual services, an increase of $19.8 million. And again, that's for various design beginning projects and inspection projects for construction that's ongoing. Item numbers 6 and 7 are tied to the additional $400 million in bonding the agency is seeking to do in 27. That's an increase to the debt service interest of $13 million and an increase to debt service principal of $10.8 million. Item 8 is again the request to add the US 69 Express Fund to the appropriations bill for the agency. And item number 9 of all other adjustments is an increase of $5 million, including 8.1 from the State Highway Fund. And that's largely for construction, inspection, and maintenance. Any questions in fiscal year 27?
Any questions in FY '27? Representative Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anywhere in here it says how much bonds that we owe on?
Mr. Chairman, the summary does not have the bond amount, but I do believe in here somewhere I have that number. I just have to find it in the table of contents.
1.6.
So it looks like currently there are $185 million outstanding in bonding across principal and interest.
And so the total of increase is 23.8 million for paying off the debt.
That is the increased portion from the new bonds next year.
Does the agency, is that correct? No, I have that. Okay. We'll get that correct number. I just wanted to make
My
sure.
apologies.
All right, you're fine. Any further discussion on 27? All right, thank you very much, Kyle. We will move on to the agency. Brendan Yorkie, welcome to committee.
Chair, committee, good afternoon. My name is Brendan Yorkie. I'm the Assistant Director of our Division Administration at KDOT. Just here with a few slides or comments, both to complement and to provide comments on what Kyle just presented. Give him a minute as he brings it up. Thank you very much. So the first thing I'm going to touch on is revenues. So as Kyle mentioned, we are funded from the State Highway Fund, and the source of revenue for that fund is through sales tax, registration fees, federal funds, and also, importantly, motor fuels tax. And that motor fuels tax is distributed to both to the State Highway Fund, which gets about 2/3, and the Special City, County, and Highway Fund, which gets about 1/3 of that as well. In our budget, you'll see the Special City and County Highway Fund as an item in our budget, but it's actually a pass-through to the locals. And so just that our budget shows it in there as a place of record, but it's actually just a pass-through to the local governments. And so the other thing I'll mention is, so that money comes to the State Highway Fund to use for our budget, but it's also shared with other agencies. And so through transfers, most notably Kansas Highway Patrol, Department of Revenue, and Wildlife Parks, among some others. So the next slide is just a snapshot of revenues. And so the biggest portion of revenues to the State Highway Fund currently is State Highway Fund, about $765 million for 2026. Behind that is federal funds, and the thing I'll mention about federal funds is those are through reimbursement, so we have to spend the state funds first, and then we submit for reimbursement with the feds to draw down those funds. And then thirdly is motor fuels tax at $464 million, and so currently still at the rate for gas, so that's 24 cents for gas, 26 cents for diesel, and that's been that way since about 2003. The next snapshot, this is 2027 snapshot, very similar to 2026, but the only notable exception here is you'll see that place for bond proceeds. So $400 million in bond proceeds that we're scheduled to bond in 2027. I have a bit more comments on bonding in the next few slides. So a bit of a bump up in sales taxes as we will see for 27, also a bump up in federal funds for 2027. What I'll say about the estimates for sales taxes, those are done in conjunction with the consensus revenue group. So they are in concert with, all the projections that we'll see on the state general fund side for sales tax. This next slide, this just shows sort of historically the revenues for the State Highway Fund up through the budget submission. And as you can see, sales tax has had the biggest growth over the years. And it's behind that with federal funds. Federal fund increases mostly a result of the IIJA bill that was passed, or the federal fund transportation bill that was passed a few years ago. But the other thing I'll note there too regarding motor fuel tax, as you can see, has been fairly steady over time. But despite those funding or revenue increases that we've seen over time, we've had increase in costs. And so what this slide shows is the National Highway Construction Cost Index. This is from the Federal Highway Administration. As you can see, it's indexed back to 2003. But as you can see, most notably, we've had that double-digit cost increases since the beginning of Ike, which has really had an offset to the additional revenues that we've received. So even though we've had those additional revenues, we haven't really fully realized those because of the increased costs that we've seen on the construction side. So now I will get into bonding. So currently in statute, there is a limit on what we can bond. So we have basically an 18% cap on our bonding. And what that means is our debt service cannot exceed 18% of revenues for bonding. And so under our current plan for bonding, as you can see that cap, or where we would be in relative to the cap in that table below. So we are well below that 18% cap with the general bonding plan that we have for Ike. And that bonding plan is essentially $1.2 billion. That was what the original estimate we had back when we conceived Ike. We haven't moved from that since. And so originally, what we were planning to do is, in that top portion, you can see the original bonding plan. So $200 million in 2025. $400 million in 2026, and you can see in the out years, $400 million in 27, $200 million in 28. That changed slightly. So instead of doing $400 million in 2026, that got shifted basically all to 2025. So we had that was mostly just moving at 1 month. So we were originally planning to issue in July, which would have been 2026, but we just ended up issuing in June, which is basically a month difference. But that shifted that to the next fiscal year, or the prior fiscal year. The other part of that too, in that transaction, we were able to trying to take advantage of refunding bonds as well. So during for that transaction, we were able to save about $46 million in refunding when by combining those transactions in 2025. The other thing I'll note too is that when we have an opportunity to do so, we will pay down debt early. So about 3 years ago, we were able to do that. We paid off about $98 million in principal, saving us about $22 million. And so when those opportunities do present themselves, we will take advantage of them, both in terms of paying down debt and also in terms of refunding. So total debt outstanding by the end of fiscal year 2026, so after we make the payments this year, we'll be at $1.7 billion. And that includes both T-Works bonds and then the new issuances for Ike. We'll climb up to about $2 billion is what our projection is, at least in 2028, but then that will start to decline as we start to pay some of those things, pay that down. And then here's just a snapshot of debt service sort of through those same years. And so again, a little bit elevated as we're still trying to pay down the T-Works bonds, but once we do, we should see debt service fall off quite a bit. So the last thing I'll mention about revenues for our budget is on just basically transfers. And so I just like to show this just a snapshot of where we are currently on transfers. So about $150 million or $49 million in the submitted budget. Maybe some differences when it's all said and done this year, when the final budget gets approved for both 26 and 27. But again, by and large, those transfers are, we share that with, or the transfers go to Kansas Highway Patrol, Department of Revenue, and also Wildlife and Parks to help maintain the park roads there. And then just some other smaller transfers as well that go out. So I'm going to shift gears to expenditures. And so this next slide just kind of, again, shows a snapshot of our budget or request for a budget submission for 2026. And as you can see, the biggest item or biggest piece of the budget is for construction or construction program. And this, so the number you see here, that's for not just projects, but all the things that need to deliver those projects in terms of design, inspection, cost for right-of-way. So that's all inclusive in that number that you see there on the slide. Here's a snapshot of 2027. So you'll notice probably a sizable decrease in the construction program expenditures, and that's for two reasons. So there's kind of two unique things about our budget that I'll mention that relative to the expenditures that you'll see, and this is something that Kyle alluded to. First is how we budget for projects, and so when we budget for projects, we budget the full amount of the project in the year that it's let. And the reason why we're budgeting the full amount is because, again, we're signing contracts on that work. We have to encumber those funds for those contracts. And so you're seeing the full encumbrance, the full cost of that project that's in the budget. And so what that means is, depending on programming, depending on lettings from year to year, you can see quite big fluctuations in our budget from one year to the next. And so that's part of what you might see. The other thing, too, is, as Kyle alluded to, is on our bonding. And so in the years that we do issue bonds, so for 2027, we are planning to issue that $400 million. So in years that we do issue those bonds, we will then back out those expenditures from our construction because we don't want to double count it and when we're paying the debt service going forward. And so it's just a mechanism that we use to prevent double counting in our budget. So what you see there, that's a bond adjusted amount on our slide for the construction. What this just attempts to do is show an unadjusted. This is not adjusted for any bonding here in this slide, this trend here. This just shows you what we would actually be doing or programming for work or represented for programming of work in those fiscal years. And as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, you can see, depending on the number of projects or what we have going on for that fiscal year, the budget can swing quite a bit from year to year based on, well, what projects we have led. So I just want to make another point about how, just to differentiate between both how we budget and then what we do, what we call cash flow side, or how projects actually pay out. So this is just an example of Polk Quincy Viaduct. And so in that table, you just see from a budget perspective, we budget the full cost. That's what you're seeing, you would see in the budget for, again, for construction expenditures. But what actually occurs is, we pay that out over several years. And so, and that's what we call our cash flow or project payout. And so just want to differentiate those two because sometimes we do talk about both on occasion. Next, I just want to switch to talking about our operations budget. And so our budget is reported in the normal program and sub-program or format that you guys are used to. But another way sometimes you will hear us talk about our budget is, our operations budget side and our construction budget side. And the reason why that is because our operations budget has a cap or expenditure limitation in the appropriations bill. And so that side is normally used exactly the things that you would expect. So salary, wages for our staff. This includes highway maintenance expenditures, including snow and ice, and also for heavy equipment, and utilities for all our buildings, which we have a number of those. And then on the construction side, these are for the things that you would expect to spend on our projects, but it's also for, right-of-way, utility relocations, contract engineering services. The only thing I'll just mention about that is in the appropriations bill, there's no limitation on those funds or those expenditures, but we're only limited by whatever cash or resource we have in the state highway fund. And finally, I just like just a snapshot of where we expect to be for state operations. So the gray bar is what was approved in Senate Bill 125 last year, so $354 million. We're coming right in at that same amount for the submitted budget for 2026. Sorry, for 2026. So 2026 approved is in the submitted are equal. And then we are asked, had to have a little bump up in 2027. That's in line with the CPIU inflation index. And that concludes just sort of my overview. Be glad to take any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Brendan? Representative Resman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On slide 16, on the budget structure, for utility relocations, does that come out of your budget or does that come out of the utilities budget to remove whatever they have to move?
I think I'm gonna have to. It's a mix. That's what I thought. It is a mix between on those utility relocations.
And the right-of-ways?
Yes, that's us.
That's used? Okay.
Yes.
Representative Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On top of your budget, you're going to sell 400 million more on bonds. Is that correct?
Yes, we plan, in 2027, we do plan to issue 400 million in bonds.
How much bonding do we have total that we're unpaid at this time?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, we have, again, $1.7 billion of bonds still outstanding, principal outstanding for bonds.
That's what I thought, 1.7. And we're going to sell 400 more million on bonds.
Yes, and that's to, again, to make sure for the, basically for our funding for Ike, as we look for with both revenues and expenses. Yes, that was in keeping with the original plan for how we were looking to for that program, fund that program. Yes.
Last year, did we sell 200 million extra too?
Last year we did 600 million. So we did 600 million in issuing of bonds for Ike. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, Brendan, thank you very much. All right, well, that is all I have for Department of Transportation, so that will close the budget hearing on KDOT. We will work their budget tomorrow. If there's nothing else for the committee, we are adjourned.